Hello, everyone. Okay, so I am very energetic. I'm usually pretty energetic, but not as energetic as I am right now because we are going to be having some discussions with seriously some of the top, I think the top minds when it comes to community-led products. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. At first, I want to introduce. I'll let them introduce themselves. Lolita, tell us who you are and where you work.
Sure. So my name is Lolita Taub. For those of you who don't know me, I'm at Lolita Taub on Twitter. And I am the co-founder and general partner at the Community Fund, where we invest in early stage community driven companies. So I'm super excited to have today's conversation. And I'm out of San Diego. And I do have a big bear. It's for my puppy.
Incredible. Thanks, Lolita. Mac, maybe you can tell us a little bit about you.
How's it going, everybody? Mac Conwell, most people know me as Mac, a software engineer turned two-time founder, and now the founder and managing partner of Rare Breed Ventures, a pre-seed to seed venture fund based out of Baltimore.
I love it. I love it. Elaine, good to see you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Elaine Zelby. I'm a partner at SignalFire. We're a $500 million early stage venture capital firm investing across seed, Series A, and Series B. We're kind of a little different beast. We are an AI data science company merged with VC. And my background's in growth and go-to-market. And so it's been really awesome for me to watch the evolution of community-led as a go-to-market motion, which I know we'll get into. But I also spend a ton of my time working with the portfolio and with companies outside of the portfolio on their growth and go-to-market.
And fun fact, she won the Actually Helpful Buildies Award.
All of us. You literally have the
Actually,
helpful VCs on the call.
That's true. So everyone, we're really special. We actually are helpful. That's what you guys say, so just take your word.
They're really special. I'm just trying to be like that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Greg Isenberg. I'm going to be moderating. I'm the CEO of a community-based product agency, fund, and studio called Late Checkout. So I was hoping we can start off by settling an internal debate that we've been having the last couple of days at Late Checkout, which is, what is the role, or what do you think the role of the creator economy is within community-led companies? And I was thinking maybe Lolita, could you share some, not to put you on the spot or anything, let's put you on the spot or anything, but creator economy, super popular, community-led, super popular. There feels to be some overlap, and I'm just curious if you have any thoughts.
I have so many thoughts about this. And the way I think about it is community as the umbrella, and the creator economy communities is a subcategory within it. And so as a creator, I wear a few different hats. So I'm a creator. I'm also a VC who invests in community in a community-driven fund that is made up by community-driven operators, investors, and founders. So there's so many metas here, but I will wear my creator hat and / VC hat. And I'll say this, I definitely think that there's a particular subsection of the community-driven business landscape that lands in the creator economy. And these are oftentimes, from my experience, led by personalities, brands. Somehow I found myself in it. And so you see folks who are building their communities that maybe they didn't even intend to do it. They started building audiences, they have fans, they have cult followers, they have community members, in which I believe every community needs all types of members. And then you see them kind of working in different ways. Maybe they have a Substack, a newsletter, or they have a podcast, or they have a YouTube show, or they have all of these, and they're starting to monetize in different ways. And I think there's a lot of overlaps and concentric circles that we can talk about. But I think the biggest takeaway for me as a creator is that there are different types of communities, and that is okay. Community-driven can mean so many things to different people. So I'd love to take a chance to define how we view it and how we define it at the Community Fund. But the other thing is that I will say before I do that is just Hunter at Homebrew talked about SKUs and looking really at the creator economy and communities that they're looking at as building out a business. But there is, in the spectrum of things, communities that are being built for business purposes and for social purposes. And so I think the whole spectrum, just whenever we're talking about community, I think we need to get a little bit more granular, what type and what is the purpose of it. With that, I will say what we always talk about when we define the community-driven companies at the Community Fund, which is really 3 elements that we're looking for. One is, in a company, do the customers identify as members of a community? And it doesn't have to be something that the company actually created. They've just actually created a space for it. And the second thing is that the company has created a space for these members to aggregate, to get together and exchange value. So this could look like, emotional support, to product support, to lots of things. And then the third element is that these members actually kick off the marketing and sales flywheel, which I'm really excited for Elaine to talk about, because this is where the community-driven company approach, I think, really ties in that differentiator in generating outsized returns relative to other companies that maybe do not have a community. So I'll stop there.
Cool. No, that's super insightful. And I think I'm really happy that you defined some of those terms. I feel like as a community ourselves in the industry, the more defining of the vocabulary are some of the things like audience, community, cult, community driven, community led, community based. Like we're hearing so many terms, and I think community is almost the oldest industry in the world, but it's also such a new industry. So I'm happy that you helped define that. And also want to welcome Alexis to the stage. What's up, Alexis?
Hello.
Do you mind just introducing yourself real quick?
Totally. Alexis Ohanian, co-founder, former executive chairman of Reddit, and now a founder of a venture firm called 776, and a big fan of community and happy to be on this platform. So thank you.
Amazing. Now that I realize we've got some VCs on the table, which is awesome, how do you all feel? It feels like there's a turning point, which is traditional VCs are starting to recognize the value of community, driven companies. Do you feel that's the case? Do you feel the tides are turning? Or is it just a lot of smoke and mirrors and they're just sort of saying it? We want your honest opinions. What do you think? Maybe we can start with Mac.
So I think it's a situation where community-based products have always been around. We're now just putting a label around this category and grouping them together. And once you do that, you now get to see the effectiveness of those type of products, which now allows you to, within that industry, define where the potential returns are from an investment standpoint, right? And so I do think that this is it's a category that's going to exist, right? And there's going to be a lot of subcategories within it, right? Which is what makes it so amazing and impactful. And I think for me, the thing about it from an investment standpoint is within these community-based companies is what I'm talking a lot about around community-based marketing. So I don't want to get ahead of the questions, but the idea of how you use your early community to become your evangelist as part of your go-to-market strategy, your customer acquisition strategy. For anybody who knows me, I'm Mr. Customer Acquisition. I think it's really intriguing and really powerful. But I don't want to get ahead of the questions, so I'll just leave it there.
I appreciate that. Elaine, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll kind of address it in 2 points. So one on the company side, and then one actually how it's affecting venture capital and how VCs themselves are thinking about building community. On the company side and investment, there's 4 primary go-to-market motions, and there's really not much else. You have direct to consumer, so you have B2C, you have bottoms-up SaaS, you have top-down enterprise, and you have B2B2C. And in consumer, community has been a primary driver of acquisition, engagement, loyalty, retention, all that stuff for a long time. We hadn't seen that yet really permeate the B2B side of the house. And we started seeing it originally with open source and developer-led companies and developer-focused companies. But I think the major shift that we're now seeing is as technology becomes commoditized, meaning there's so much stuff you can just take off the shelf, combine pieces together to get a company from 0 to 1, your defensibility from a tech perspective goes away completely. So how do companies think about defensibility? And one of the natural ways to build a moat is to build a community who's incredibly loyal, who's incredibly passionate, and who's going to be your marketing arm. And so I think what we're seeing now on the venture capital side is companies are coming to this realization. Every company now is trying to figure out, how do we build our own evangelist community, whether we are a enterprise company. One of my favorite examples of somebody doing this very well, very early, is a company called Aptio. And they were building software for CIOs to help financially plan and manage their spend. And they realized pretty quickly that if they brought in incredibly influential CIOs as a customer advisory board, gave them small amounts of equity and upside in the company, but they evangelized this group, they actually created something called the TBM Council, which became a large event and community of CIOs. And that drove the growth of Aptio. And companies are now really adopting that model. And so I think as an investor, that's what I'm looking for, is who is powering that next wave of bottoms up SaaS, top down enterprise and B2B2C companies. The other major shift I'm seeing is that venture capital firms are starting to invest in community. I mean, first round capital was probably the quintessential example of somebody early doing this. Everyone else was focused on, we have these 5 partners, maybe they tweet, maybe they have a blog, but they didn't care so much about the ecosystem. And now you're seeing people develop networks. So the concept of network-driven VC is very popular. People are building their own kind of ecosystems and communities of founders, of executives, of operators. And I think that's something we're going to continue to see a lot.
I'd love to add on that point, because I think we're not just seeing it in VCs. I mean, all of the VCs on here, we're all community driven, right? I think there's also a subsection of the ecosystem that is focused here. There are absolutely still the old guard that are kind of disregarding this concept of community, still seeing it as niche and not necessarily seeing it as the business asset that it is. The other thing that I would add is from an LP perspective. So the investors who invest in venture capital funds, they are also, like, it is getting to the essence of how VC funds are being formed. The community fund, like I mentioned, we're like a meta of community. But you also see in LP funds. So I'm an LP at Operators Collective. The reason why I invested is because they're literally a community of operators who are sourcing the best deals, selecting the best deals, and doing the stewardship. So you have the best operators finding and supporting companies. Like, that is a winning strategy to me. And I'm also, I also participated earlier on in the Portfolio fund platform, which is also very much community driven. So this approach to investing in community, investing as LPs in funds that are doing community driven things, because we see that community-driven differentiator is really something that's happening. So it's really impacting all the layers of the ecosystem.
It's the moat of all moats. That's how I see it. It's the moat of all moats. And Elaine said something, is technology getting commoditized? And I think technology will increasingly get commoditized, but community never. And I think that's of it. Alexis, any additional thoughts on sort of where we're going in terms of VC and community?
I think this panel's done a great job. The only thing I could add is just that it has become a very popular word. People throwing community on at everything, and I'm in awe of the fact that there is the part that I think venture firms in particular have a lot of trouble getting a hold of and understanding is, like, there's a lot of work that goes into building community that is almost by definition not scalable. It's the work of conversation, of bonding, of engagement, of creativity and scheduling, and like creating just the same kind of work that it takes to be a community organizer offline. Still requires the same skills, same everything online. and it's going to be interesting to watch. While everyone is so hot for it, and I think it's all good, you're definitely going to see a lot of I don't know, missteps is the right word, but you're definitely going to see a lot of folks just showing up being like, okay, great, now what do we've got a community, right? What do we pull some off the shelf product, we send a link, we tweet out a link, and there's a community there, right? And it's the essence of it. And I think one of the reasons why even summits like this are so cool is that it's like the work that it actually takes to build up these things is real. It is intensive. It is emotional. It requires empathy and creativity and all these things that make it the moat and all the things y'all are talking about. But like, I'm happy everyone's hyped about it. What they're going to next then get confronted with is the actual work, and kudos to the folks who are going to be doing it, because that's a whole nother level of EQ as well as IQ.
Alexis, I could not agree more with you, because, and in fact, a lot of the OGs that I call them OGs, like David Spinks and Rosie and Mac, there's this perception of we've been doing this for a while, and now there's people who are like, should I hire an intern to run my community? And it's not like that. For those of us who are really in it, we put in the time, the sweat, the effort, DM by DM, email by email. This is not a marketing campaign where it's just like, okay, there you go, magical. And you have to listen to people, because it's so much about caring. And if you don't care, here's the thing though, I'm really optimistic, because all of the, like all the people who are just talking about it in terms of like the cool word or the cool thing to do, they'll all fall out, because in community, I really believe that authenticity is something that we seek for. And if we don't see it, we leave it and we don't do anything with it. So I think that if even there is a start to these communities that aren't really communities, I think they'll fall through, and we'll still end up with a good quality of community, because they just won't be able to survive, in my opinion.
But, I want to pick on one thing that Alexis said, to follow down this thread. And from an investment standpoint, is the things it takes and the work it takes to build your community initially are things that don't scale, right? And, as investors, we're always talking about scale, billion-dollar valuation. That's what we want you to get to. That is what we want you to get to. But if you're going to have a product that is very community-focused or community-driven, then the earliest days of your company, you're going to, and this happens for a lot of startups, but I don't think we talk about it enough, where you're going to do a lot of things that don't scale, right? And you're going to get really good at things that don't scale. And then you're going to hit a point where you're going to need to scale. And that's when it gets really, really hard. When you go from doing the things that don't scale, but you want to stay connected to that community and you need to scale, right? You need to be really thoughtful about the processes and things you put into place to keep it what you envision. Otherwise, we have seen communities run amok, right? And then you can have a company that's now being moved not by your vision, but by the community's vision. Now, whether or not that's what you want or whether or not that's a good thing, that's for you as an entrepreneur to figure out. But just understand, like, if you want to keep the reins on that and you want your community to go in a certain direction, you get to a point where, and yes, I do still have a regular house phone, so my apologies. One of the few people left in America like that. But in case you have to be very thoughtful of that transition from doing the things that don't scale to the things that do scale. And there aren't many people that have done it and done it well, because it's a really hard thing to do. But it's something that you really need to spend time to think through. And from an investment standpoint, if you're doing things that don't scale today, that's fine. If you're building community, that's okay, right? Because like that's part of the process. And I think that's a really important point. And I'm happy you said that, Mac, because a lot of folks, entrepreneurs, they take their first check, raise their first round, and they feel a bit of pressure to go as fast as possible. And it sounds like what you're saying is community doesn't need, it's not exponential from day one. And you have to put in sort of the work, and it's okay to do things that don't scale and sort of build yourself up. So I appreciate you saying that. And I think I totally agree with you. Also amazing that you have a house phone. Love it.
It's vintage.
Yeah, it's just, it's awesome. It's so I was like transported back to like my an earlier era, and it felt right. I like that. We only have 10 more minutes, and I could talk for hours, but it wouldn't be 2021 if I didn't discuss crypto with you all. And I know the price of crypto is probably down like 15 or 20%. So I hope people are still interested in crypto and community. I know I am. There seems to be this marriage between, or overlap between, crypto communities and just community driven companies. And then there's sort of concepts of tokenized communities, concepts of DAOs. Would love to go around the room and just see what where you see the future of crypto and community going, and what is that relationship to you? Maybe we can start with Alexis.
Okay. Still long on crypto. I think, I've been asked a lot in the last few months, in particular around NFTs as one specific implementation of the blockchain that I think community, when I talk to folks who are like, hey, I want to do an NFT. How do I do an NFT? I'm like, okay. We made some cool technology that made it really easy. The global internet, the global brain made some really cool technology to take like all the functionality of this and the scarcity of this is one sheet of paper that I'm going to do a little sketch on. And now it's like, this is a canvas that's valuable for some reason. Even though like I can go to the Louvre right now and see a bunch of pieces of paper with ink on it, and they're way more valuable than this one that I just made. Why? Well, because that dead tree with ink is imbued with all this other stuff, like culture in particular. And so when I talk about NFTs, I'm like, okay, look, everyone got access to do a little piece of paper, and that's great. But most of this piece of paper is not worth much more than just the paper. That's just the technology. What makes these things special is first, like, okay, there's the artistic quality of the thing you put on there. And that's debatable and very subjective, has been for a while. But the really interesting thing is when you start layering on this technology with community, because that creates the relevance that actually creates culture. And that's one of the things that actually we're still in the very earliest days of it. And so we're a long ways from it. But one of the things that gives me hope about the infrastructure that allows for things like blockchain, blockchain technology to like make NFTs exist is I think it's a chance to better align creators with their communities for long-term value creation, for long-term wealth creation in a way that wasn't even possible. And like, I dog the Mona Lisa all the time because it's one of the best. First, it's a pretty mediocre painting, in my opinion. But it's like held up as one of the greatest pieces of like Western art. And it's this great Renaissance era painting that every single kid grows up, certainly here in the States and probably also Italy and most of Europe, like knows, because it's just the Mona Lisa. It's really important. But nobody cared about the Mona Lisa. It was another painting in the Louvre until in the early 20th century, it became a meme. This is true. You can Google it. No one gave a damn about the Mona Lisa. Yeah, Da Vinci painted it. It was nice, but no one cared about it. And the reason people started caring was because it got stolen. And a bunch of people in Paris were like, oh my God, this painting was stolen from the Louvre. This is terrible. And it was a meme because it was in newspapers and people in cafe shops were talking about it. But it created the kind of community and cultural appreciation that had not existed for hundreds of years until it got stolen and was sort of mimetically shared. So I bring this up only to say, like, we create this stuff all the time. Most of it is created from the top down historically. And now for the first time ever, it gets to be created from the bottom up because a bunch of people who were there from day one, when I first drew this drawing on a piece of paper, was like, this is cool. I want to be a part of this. And I think as we start thinking about building, not just artists building their careers, but like companies building their businesses with the ability to have their earliest believers sign up and say, I'm a part of this and I'm a card carrying member. And maybe I even get some upside if this thing does really well, that the economic value sort of rewards my being early and an early supporter. Like it changes the game for potentially everything. So I got a little ranty there, but I think applied well with all the best practices from community that we've learned in the first sort of go of Web 2.0. Web 3.0 can be infinitely greater because it will be able to properly sort of assess and reward the people who are there from day one, the OGs of community. That has value, right? Like I can tell all my friends, yeah, I was Beyonce's first fan. Not true, but I'd love to be able to tell that. Now it'd be worth even more to me if I had proof of it, and it'd be worth, maybe I've got an old ticket stub. Okay. But imagine the NFT equivalent, and it'd be worth even more to me if that had value and I could sort of bet on that talent or that community or that technology or that whatever early. And that's what we've seen get us this far. And I'm excited for it to go really mainstream.
I'm particularly really interested in how organizations or communities like Friends with Benefits are coming together, and you buy into a community, and you literally are on a Discord, and you're paying and you're building the value of the community together, right? So essentially it's, how do we monetize? How do we all win? How I see it is, how do we all win together? And in fact, I actually tried to get on Rolly so I can make a Lolita token, because if I could do that and I can invite everybody in my community to win with me, earn with me, I want to do that. But Rolly said no. So, okay, that's fine. But I think this is really key. But you have like really great examples like Mirror that is making that kind of bridge really easy. So you know how earlier on we were talking about with the creator economy and the communities that they're building on like newsletters, whatever. This is now bridging that that next step into the future, right? Where it's like, well, hey, it actually takes a shitload of time to write these things. So who can help me out so I can do this thing? I can give you the value you guys want, and we can all reap the benefits of it. And so there's Mirror, right? And so I think that we're going to see more and more of the tokens and NFTs and all types of things, because essentially two things. One is there's no trust. There's a lack of trust in people. Like, this is just human nature, and this is my subjective perspective. When I was doing my research in my capstone project in business school in 2017, it was all about that. Like, the reason why it works is because no one trusts anybody. But somehow, knowing that nobody trusts anybody and there's a ledger that captures everything, now we can trust each other. And so after we trust each other, can we make money together? And I think that's something that we're going to continue to see evolving, and we're going to see more of, where now we're going to talk about not just creator communities, but creator and community builders coming together and building on these blocks along with the parallel technology. And I'm so excited to see what happens. And I'm excited to also play a role in experimenting in this, because we're all figuring it out as we go along.
I'll add one really quick thought on here. So I actually spent 2017 and 2018 at Consensus, which is a large, essentially venture studio building. We were incubating over 50 different applications on the Ethereum blockchain, touching financial services to supply chain and logistics and everything in between. And by nature, crypto and everything blockchain related has grown up in the community ethos, mostly because when you think about how a lot of the stuff actually works under the hood, it's participatory versus, what a lot of other things, which are the antithesis of participatory. And that's why it's really thinking through incentive alignments and how can tokens and different types of tokens, like a governance token, which we don't have time to get into today, but how can that be used to align incentives among the community to participate in ways that both secure, grow, enable whatever that application is or whatever that community is meant to be. And I think that's really the interesting thing that other people can learn who are not in the blockchain space and take away from some of these blockchain projects, is how you create incentives and then how you think through participatory nature of community.
And I guess for me, the big thing is when you think about crypto and blockchain, to Elaine's point, it is all driven by the users, by the creators, by the community, right? Like, the people determine the value of what it is, right? From the beginning. Like, anybody can mint a crypto, right? Anybody can mint an NFT or create a coin, but the value comes from what the people say the value is. And so crypto in general is people driven. So that makes it by definition community driven. It only works if people in community believe in it. And so that's why crypto is community. Without the community, it's just a piece of code.
Well, we're out of time, but I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling pretty inspired. It sounds like, we covered a lot of ground. And I think, if you take anything from this talk, is there's tremendous opportunity in community-driven companies. If it's B2B, if it's B2C, if you're interested in crypto, if you're interested in DAOs, tokenized communities, there's just a lot of lanes that you can go and explore. So I want to thank each and every one of you for inspiring the next generation of community builders and spending your time here. you guys are you all are all legends. So in your own right. So thank you so much. And maybe we can just go around. Where could people find you? Do you have anywhere? Maybe starting with Lolita. Where can we find you if people want to learn more about Community Fund and yourself?
Yeah, sure. So at Twitter, at Lolita Taub is a great place to start. And I highly recommend you follow everyone on here. And Greg is fantastic. And I have his hack on how he comes up with the content. It's in his sauna. If only I had a sauna. But anyway, at Lolita Taub.
You can follow me on Twitter at Mac Conwell. And I'm lucky enough to be followed by everybody here except for you, Greg.
Wow.
I need a follow, sir.
Wow.
I'm
I
just
know
saying.
what I'm doing right after this.
And you can hit me up. I'm not good at social media, so I'm Elaine at signalfire.com, and I write a weekly newsletter at Zelby, my last name, .substack.com, with 3 requests for startups, just looking at a lot of different areas. We talk a lot about different things in community as well. It's fun.
I'm on Twitter at Alexis Ohanian. Put my thing there. It's in the chat.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. My name's Greg Isenberg. And you can find me on Twitter as well at Greg Isenberg. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.